Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter number 6, Creation of the Universal Form, text number 39. Ato Bhagavato Maya Mai Namapi Mohini Yat Swayam Chatma Vartmatma Yat Swayam Chatma Vartmatma Naveda Kimutapare Naveda Kimutapare Ato Bhagavato Maya Mai Namapi Mohini Yat Swayam Chatma Vartmatma Naveda Kimutapare Ato Bhagavato Maya Mai Namapi Mohini Yat Swayam Chatma Vartmatma Naveda Kimutapare Ato Bhagavato Maya Mai Namapi Mohini Yat Swayam Chatma Vartmatma Naveda Kimutapare Ato Bhagavato Maya Mai Namapi Mohini Yat Swayam Chatma Vartmatma Naveda Kimutapare Ato Bhagavato Maya Mai Namapi Mohini Yat Swayam Chatma Vartmatma Naveda Kimutapare. Please repeat word for word. Ataha, therefore. Bhagavataha, godly. Maya, potencies. Mainam, of the jugglers. Api, even. Mohini, enchanting. Yat, that which. Swayam, personally. Cha, also. Atma Vartma, self-sufficient. Atma, self. Na, does not. Veda, no. Kim, what. Uta, to speak of. Apare, others. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. The wonderful potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is bewildered even to the jugglers. That potency is unknown even to the self-sufficient Lord, so it is certainly unknown to others. Purport. The froggish philosophers and mundane wranglers in science and mathematical calculation may not believe in the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they are sometimes puzzled by the wonderful jugglery of man and nature. Such jugglers and magicians of the mundane world are actually puzzled by the jugglery of the Lord in His transcendental activities, but they try to adjust their bewilderment by saying that it is all mythology. There is, however, nothing impossible or mythological in the Supreme Omnipotent Person. The most wonderful puzzle for the mundane wranglers is that while they remain calculating the length and breadth of the unlimited potency of the Supreme Person, His faithful devotees are set free from the bondage of material engagement simply by appreciating the wonderful jugglery of the Supreme in the practical field. The devotees of the Lord see the wonderful dexterity in everything with which they come in contact in all circumstances of eating, sleeping, working, etc. A small banyan fruit contains thousands of small seeds, and each seed holds the potency of another tree, which again holds the potency of many millions of such fruits as causes and effects. So the trees and seeds engage the devotees in meditation about the activities of the Lord, while the mundane wranglers waste time in dry speculation and mental concoction, which are fruitless in both this life and the next. In spite of their pride in speculation, they can never appreciate the simple activities of the banyan tree's potency. But such speculators are poor souls destined to remain in matter perpetually. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you for listening to Sunday morning Bhagavatam class. So it's a very nice translation and purport. So last few days we've been hearing about how Krishna is like the supreme actor or pious actor. It was mentioned a few classes before how Krishna's acts are performed in a way that people get bewildered sometimes. Sometimes people question. Sometimes people get curious. To just a little. Some people actually even get disturbed by Krishna's pastimes. But those are the non-devotees. They usually get disturbed. Like we know in how Kamsa would get constantly disturbed when he would send demons to destroy Krishna one after another. A little boy to destroy demons, big, great demons, one of the best demons in the world, one after another. It's like sending the best players in your team, and it's getting destroyed by a little boy. I remember I used to watch this movie as a kid. There's this movie with some little kid got these magic shoes, and he would play basketball, and then all these great players would just, no competition in front of that kid. So, and the person and the coach of the team would just get disturbed. He has tried his best. Even the players are not as disturbed as the coach, because he has spent all his life and energy feeding, training these great players, and he's just getting demolished by this little kid. Imagine that situation. So Kamsa is probably in that situation too. He has spent all his life feeding, taking care of these great demons. And when he sends these demons to Krishna, to kill Krishna, they just lose their life. And Kamsa's like, I don't know what to do. Tried everything, All the great demons are there, getting destroyed. See, when there is 2 or 3 or 4 demons getting destroyed, an intelligent person would realize, maybe this is not going to work. Maybe there's something wrong. Maybe he has got more opulence than anyone else combined. Maybe I should think about it and make friends with him, or try to understand what's going on, the situation properly. But when you're envious of someone, when you hate someone very much, these things don't come, because intelligence is totally destroyed, right? Intelligence is ruined. So the only thing matters to you is to how to bring this person down. You will use all your possession, all your energy, just to bring that person down. So that's what we see from the pastime of Kamsa. He used everything he had, all his opulence that was given to him by Krishna. in the first place. Well, he wasn't even given, he took it. He took it. So, but still, that's what happens. That's what Krishna is trying to tell us. You can speculate, you can use all your opulence, but Krishna is the supreme in everything. Krishna is going to be number one, unless he wants this devotee to be number one. But Krishna will still always be the number one. So that's the role of Krishna. So in this purport, we hear very beautifully Prabhupada's mentioning that the froggish philosophers and mundane wranglers in science and mathematical calculation may not believe in the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they are sometimes puzzled by the wonderful jugglery of man and nature. So it's like we know, these scientists or these great so-called scientists and mathematicians who try to, say that we are going to prove something, that this material nature. So everything they try to prove is related to the material nature, the scientists. And Prabhupada was mentioning in somewhere I read Prabhupada mentioning that these scientists, they create these small things and they spend first of all, they spend thousands of years just to create. That's like from deep research, right? We know from these great scientists, they research something and this other scientist used his research to prove something, and then the other scientists used their research to prove something. So there's like years they've been spending. It's like disciplic succession of mundane scientists using other person's research to prove another point. And most of the time, someone has proved something and they disprove totally, and they prove something else. So there's no constant, there's no balance. There's always going something this or that. There's no, like for example, using a mundane example, growing up as a kid in our books, we used to read there's 9 planets, right? There's Pluto. And then a few years later, 5 or 10 years ago, I can't remember, someone proved there is no Pluto. There's only 8 planets. There's no 9 planets. I'm like, what's going on? Then why are being taught this philosophy of 9 planets when there's only 8 planets? And then someone said, oh, maybe there is a 9th planet. So there's no certainty. Everything is very shaky. So, and these jugglers, they don't understand because they want to be the best. They want to prove that I have done something, I have made a great achievement in this, I've given a great contribution in this material world. So Prabhupada says that they always, because they will not understand the opulence of the Supreme. They will never be able to understand or glorify the potency of the Supreme, right? Because they're already too caught up in proving him wrong. Because they cannot understand. Like for example, Prabhupada was saying speaking to a scientist, and he was saying that, and the scientist was saying that there is, we have created these great Sputnik or these great satellites floating in the universe. And Prabhupada says, well, how many satellites are there in the universe? That's like back in 80s, right? So there's only one great satellite that's just been launched. And Prabhupada's giving, well, how many planets are floating? How many universes are floating? So it's unlimited. You can't conceive that, but you're not going to glorify that when you see those great things. But you're only going to glorify, look, that one satellite we humans have created, spending millions of dollars of resources in it. If you read that book called Easy Journey to Other Planets, Prabhupada very nicely demolishes how the usage of money to spend this one little satellite is done, wasting resources, not appreciating Krishna's resources, while you can see that there is already thousands of planets and universes floating in the universe. So what is your little satellite compared to these great big planets? Like you see the sun planet, right? You can't even look at the sun. Imagine going closer to the sun. So these great planets are floating. How are they floating? So Prabhupada makes these points with almost every scientist, and we know one of the great scientist disciples of Prabhupada, he wrote the book, Life Comes from Life. And so Prabhupada said to his disciple that you should use all the science, and he told it to other scientists as well. He would tell them constantly whenever he would speak to any of these so-called scholarly people. He would say, you have so much, you have a gift, you have a talent, that you can see things that an ordinary person cannot. So you should use these skills in Krishna's service to prove Krishna's existence to everyone, rather than disproving. So that's what Prabhupada would constantly focus on. He would tell his disciples to, like for example, he would tell what was the name of the disciple? Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj. He would tell him that, you should research and prove something about the existence of the soul. Right? So that's why he ended up writing the book, Life Comes from Life. So this is like a great learning for us to see that whatever strengths we have, we should try to use it in Krishna's service. Because in this world, there's a lot of discussions, there's a lot of contaminations, there's a lot of debates and arguments about what's right and what's wrong. No one really knows. They just keep questioning each other. Like we have these so-called these so-called theorists, right? They prove another theory. They make this theory, like for example, moon landing theory. Is it real or is it fake? These conspiracy theorists, they're always looking for some conspiracy. So this is the nature of the mind. Like for example, Prabhupada mentions that Krishna is the supreme magician, right? There's no magician greater or that has ever existed greater than Krishna, right? So we all probably have seen a magician in our life, Yeah, anyone here who hasn't seen a magician? Probably as kids, we love to see magicians. We love this act that makes us bewildered, right? So for a magician, when a magician performs his magic, he knows the magic. He knows what he's doing. But the others are confused. He's not confused by his own magic. A magician is never lost or bewildered by his own magic because he knows what's the trick. He knows it. But other people who don't know, they're the ones who are getting bewildered, who are getting confused, who are getting amazed, right? But I remember as a kid, this is the natural form of a human being. It's like, well, not natural, just in the material world. Because we are covered with illusion, and the first thing we try to do is find fault. Try to prove this person wrong. Like I remember, I was a very little kid, and the first time I saw a magic trick, I was just focusing. I'm gonna find how this person is cheating everyone, and I'm gonna prove him wrong. Yeah. But my father didn't do that. My father, because he's a grown-up, intelligent man, he wasn't thinking like that. He knows it's a magic trick. Instead of proving him wrong, he was appreciating the magic trick. Look, the amazing amount of stuff that he has produced. So, a person who is not intelligent, who doesn't have the right knowledge, will always try to question or try to prove Krishna's existence wrong. That, oh look, like for example, Prabhupada gives this example, all these great scholars and these scientific, they just see Krishna as an ordinary human being who comes, and when he leaves, he's like, oh look, he's gone. If he's Supreme God, how is he gone? He should be here. So, but they don't realize that Krishna is performing his act. And instead, Prabhupada's mentioned this beautiful point, like one of the most important point in this purport, that the most wonderful puzzle for the mundane wranglers is that while they remain calculating the length and breadth of the unlimited potency of the Supreme Person, his faithful devotees are set free from the bondage of material engagement simply by appreciating the wonderful jugglery of the Supreme in the practical field. So, this is kind of common sense, right? Like as I was given an example of my father, who knows this magician. He says, oh, this magician is performing a beautiful act, We can appreciate we all can appreciate. Even though he knows it's illusory act, is still performed by this magician, and he can appreciate that. And by appreciating that magician, he becomes friend with the magician. Imagine if you're a magician, if you're performing a show, and there's this person sitting in the audience who constantly stops your magic trick and says, oh, I know how you did that. He's just trying to ruin the show. So a magician would not be happy with that person. Or neither would the other audience who are trying to enjoy the show. So he's just sort of a disturbance to the whole act, right? That's what a person would think. So it's similarly with Krishna. When Krishna is performing his acts, his devotees, which everyone is actually naturally a devotee of Krishna, but because of the illusory energy, they're just a bit disturbed, just have been lost. So, but everyone who was trying to be a devotee of Krishna is trying to appreciate and understand this beautiful act of Krishna's pastimes. And everyone knows these beautiful, like this, as I was saying, the little kid destroying these great demons. As a kid, it's awesome to read these stories. But a person who's not a devotee of Krishna, what he's trying to do, he's just trying to prove, like, oh, this is mythology. As Prabhupada's mentioning, it can't be true. A little kid cannot kill these thousands of demons, great demons. Well, it's got to be not true. When we hear, like, so many people now question the authority of the Vedic scriptures, they question that, oh, Ramayana, Mahabharata, all these things, maybe they're just myths. There's thousands and thousands of elephants being killed, thousands and thousands of, like, well, you see World War I and II, so many people were killed. You go 200 years from now, people will start calling this a mythology. World War I and World War II is mythology. It didn't happen. It's just made up. You go 200 years from now, you tell people there were 200 million people killed. For 2 years, people were locked down, due to a pandemic. No one's going to believe that. Or maybe they will see the truth, because this all sounds far out. So that's why we only can perceive what we see. That's why in the material world, what we see is something we only try to believe, and everything else seems a bit far out. So it's difficult for us to understand that. I was speaking to my friend the other day. I was telling him, like, imagine you would have told a person 100 years ago, not even too far, 80 years ago, maybe 1920s, 1910, 1920s, that there will be everyone in the universe will be looking at one screen and doing everything. Right, just one screen, constantly looking at one screen and performing all their activities. Everyone just call you crazy, in that time. Even we see these so-called scholarly people like Da Vinci and all these people who have designed, like, for example, Da Vinci designed this airplane model, the first airplane model ever, and people would call him stupid. Like, what is this? It's not possible, it's not even practical, But we see now the airplanes are flying. So many airplanes are flying. So, as per time and situation, not everyone has that power or that potency to see things clearly. So naturally a person questions and argues. But instead of doing that, if we appreciate what this person has created, something different, that's where the success is. That's where we can really go deep into it. So instead of questioning the Vedic philosophy or questioning whether it's real or it's not, one should appreciate. I mean, it's not, if you read these Vedic stories or if you read Krishna book, my Guru Maharaj says it's actually beyond human intellect. He said he has seen all these great, he has seen the height of a human intellect where you can go. And all these pastimes are way beyond it. You can't, like a supreme God coming as a cowherd boy cannot be an imaginary form. Like a person cannot imagine to such extent. It's because it's truth. That's why it's there. So you cannot imagine the truth, right? The truth, absolute truth is there. So you cannot create through imagination. A small boy who's going to the forest, cowherd boy, who's the supreme personality of God, this idea is beyond human intellect, right? We can see people, when they talk about a supreme God, they would want the opulences, they would want all these great things that a God does, but they cannot understand, they cannot portray through their material vision that a God can come as a cowherd boy that is beyond their intellect. So this is the point of the Vedic philosophy, that most of the time, because we are appearing in Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, we try to question anything and everything. Now, pretty much we do. But instead of that, if we appreciate what we see and what we hear in Bhagavatam, that's when we can actually use our time, our energy, to the most valuable resource. Because Bhagavatam is the most valuable resource. And sometimes it may be difficult for us to understand everything that's going in Bhagavatam. still, after 5 years of practicing Krishna consciousness, I still get bewildered half the time. How's this going on? There's like this from this person. There's like these 500,000 people coming, or what's going on? This creation. When we read about creation, that's probably the most bewildering part. So instead of that, we can appreciate that. Look how amazing this is. Look how beautifully it has been described. And instead of questioning, we just try to relish the nectar given to us in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I remember in Chaitanya Leela, I just been reading this explanation of Atma Rama verse in from different point of views. So just by just one word, Mahaprabhu has explained it in 64 or some amazing amount of different ways, So it can be used. Everything. So if a person is not coming through the authority, it's easy to get bewildered. See, one thing I realized by reading that verse is, if Mahaprabhu himself can give that many explanation of Atmarama verse, right? It's easy for a person who's not coming from authority to get bewildered and confused, right? We know there's many people who've read Srimad Bhagavatam and still they think Krishna has no form. That's like missing out the whole. It's like you're playing cricket, right? You're playing cricket and it's just like clean bowled, you just bowled out. After spending so many on the first ball, you just get bowled, because you missed the ball. You missed the whole flight. So that's just bewildering, because even a person spending so much time and energy can still not get the exact knowledge, the essence of the scriptures. The only reason that would happen because he's not coming from the authority. And what happens to those people? Prabhupada says at the end, right? Last line. Such speculators are poor souls destined to remain in matter perpetually. This is beautifully how Prabhupada is describing in the purport, right? Because they have missed the goal of life. They missed the essence of life. Krishna's form, which we read in Krishna book, this little boy who's performing these beautiful pastimes, and they say this is just a little, really, Krishna's not there. He dies, so it's just as, at the end Krishna has to leave. So it's not Krishna, this is not a universal form. This is not the supreme form of Krishna. It's just temporary form. So that's why we question these people, right? We actually try not to argue with these people, first of all, save our time. Because Mahaprabhu, I remember this story in Chaitanya Leela when Mahaprabhu was in Varanasi, and there were so many of these Mayavadis and impersonalists that would, say bad things about Mahaprabhu. They would, just say horrible things about Lord Chaitanya. And the devotees who were there present with Lord Chaitanya would get very disturbed, right? They would get we can't take this anymore. Because that's what a devotee is supposed to do, right? When a devotee hears blasphemy towards the devotees or the Lord, he's supposed to take an action. Or if he can't do that, then he just leaves the room, or not be in that place, or probably kill himself. That's what the Shastra tell us. But these devotees are getting very disturbed, and they're deciding to do something, They're coming up with this idea how we can, if these impersonalists and Mayavadis can see the personal features that we have seen of Lord Chaitanya, they would come to believe the existence and the supremacy of Lord Chaitanya. So they create this plan of bringing all the Mayavadis and impersonalists together, at one place, so they can see Lord Chaitanya and ask all these whatever questions they have, and then Lord Chaitanya can smash their different philosophies and ideas in the head, right? So this is a beautiful pastime. I haven't finished the whole pastime yet, so I will not talk about it. That's where I stopped yesterday. So that's where until I've read this pastime. So it's a very beautiful pastime. We can try to understand how devotees are always doing something. So when we go outside preaching, we're trying to bring people to the light of Krishna consciousness so they can understand and glorify the personal features of the Lord, right? Our tradition, our Guru Parampara is majorly focused, like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He's destroying the impersonalists, because Bhaktisiddhanta would just go totally. Prabhupada would explain how his Guru Maharaj is one of the main goals for appearance was to destroy the Mayavadis. And Prabhupada did himself. it would destroy all these wranglers and scientists and, tell them to be Krishna conscious and use everything in Krishna's service. And Prabhupada gives this example of a banyan tree. Like, it's just about appreciating what Krishna has created. Just by doing that, if you just appreciate what you see around yourself, that's appreciating the Supreme Personality of God, and that's the beginning of devotional service. Because sometimes we don't realize that just because we are physically engaged in performing service does not only mean we are performing devotional service. Just by glorifying, we are performing devotional service, right? If you glorify a devotee, or if you glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's performing devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if you see something that Krishna has created, and you say, look how beautiful creation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Krishna doesn't forget anything. He always remember, if you've just little glorified Krishna, you can get the highest result, right? Like, for example, when you chant Krishna's name with little sincerity, with little purity, you get the highest result. I was reading in 10th canto Prayers by Lord Brahma, I think it was. There was this beautiful verse that's mentioned, which is explaining Shreya Shritim Bhaktim Udasyate Vibho Klishyanti Ye Kevala Bodha Labdhaye Tesha Maso Kleshala Eva Shishyate Nanyad Yatha Stula Tushavaghatanin Tinam. It means that, my dear Lord, devotional service unto you is the best path for self-realization. If someone gives up that path and engages in the cultivation of speculative knowledge, he will simply undergo a troublesome process and will not achieve his desired result. It's a very beautiful line, right? He will simply undergo a troublesome process and will not achieve his desired result. As a person who beats an empty husk of wheat cannot get grain. One who simply speculates cannot achieve self-realization. His only gain is trouble. I like that line very much. His only gain is trouble. So if you speculate on Krishna's form and appearance, it's just trouble. It's just causing you trouble. It's like the example says, a person who beats an empty husk of wheat cannot get grain. So for example, if I deny your existence, if you tell a person that you don't exist, he would feel very bad. He would be very hurt that how can you deny my existence? I am standing right in front of you. There's a lot of trouble involved there. There'd be a lot of trouble for that person who speaks to people. Imagine going on the street and randomly stopping people and telling them, you don't exist. He just go furious, he just start swearing at you, and it just be a lot of trouble involved. So that's what we try to understand, that everything has a form. Krishna has a form. So we appreciate and read about that form. In many forms Krishna appear, Nrsingadev, Varadev, the fish incarnation. One should appreciate that how Krishna is appearing in these beautiful forms, and instead of questioning, why would God come in the form of a fish or a pig? Or a boar, why is he coming in these forms? He's Krishna. He doesn't have to come in these forms. Yeah, he doesn't. But he still does. That's the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the magician we're talking about. He's a supreme magician. He can do whatever he wants. We are entitled to the modes of nature. We have to perform activities in the realm of the nature, on the mode of nature. But Krishna doesn't, because he's spiritual. Satchidananda, full of eternity, knowledge and bliss. Nothing can stop Krishna from performing his activities. And all these forms are spiritual anyway. They are in the spiritual world, right? In Vaikuntha planets, all these forms of Nrsinga, Vara, all present in Vaikuntha. They are all eternal. They're not like temporary universal forms. They are eternal forms of Krishna. So one should understand and appreciate, like as I was saying. If you see something around you and you appreciate as, look how beautiful Krishna is created. Like for example, the other day, a few months ago, I was taking the bus and I saw this church, and outside these churches, there's like these little boats with their messages. And there was this message, oh Lord, how beautiful is your holy name. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what we preach too. How beautiful is Krishna's holy name. So just by doing that, they're getting a little benefit. Just by thinking that they may not have the full idea or full, but if you just glorify the Supreme Lord, there's always some benefit there. So instead we should just, if you see like a river flowing, when you see the Ganges and Yamuna or these great holy rivers, people glorify them very much. There's like arati performed, there's puja, like we worship Tulsi Maharani every day as a great devotee of the Lord. So all these things, all these acts we are performing is bringing us closer to Krishna. And that's what we need to understand. Because the more we do it, the closer we can get in our devotional credit. Right? Just a little start is all we need. Because that's why we got on books, just to give that people, that Bhakti Lata Bij, the little seed of devotional service. Just by appreciating a Bhagavad Gita. If some person may not even take a Bhagavad Gita, and you say, it's a very beautiful book, but I don't think I have time to, I like what you're doing, but I just don't want it. Just by appreciating that much, they made a start. Just by associating with that Sankirtan devotee, they have made a start in their devotional credit. That's the first association. And if you imagine if it's a pure devotee, if it's Gurudev or some spiritual master, Prabhupada was just sitting under a tree with his pair of kartals chanting Hare Krishna. And thousands of people, and so many Bhakti Lata Bijas just became a big plant in 6 months? We can't even conceive that, because that's the power of the holy name. That's the power of a pure devotee. But just a little lava matra, little association. 1/11 second of an association with the pure devotee gives you the highest result. That's the great verse we hear, right? Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoi. Sarva Siddhi, highest result you can get. So this is what we try to do. We try to give people that Bhakti Lata seed, that nourish their seed inside the banyan tree, like Prabhupada is giving. The small banyan tree has the potential to become such a huge tree. And from that tree will come many other trees as well, from that little seed. So this is what we should understand. When we go on Sankirtan, when we are preaching, we're trying to give people that little water that nourish that little seed. Because devotees don't grow on trees, right? You're not finding devotees growing on trees. You just pick one and bring him to the temple and let them do service. That's not how it works. A devotee needs to be cultivated. A devotee needs to be nourished through hard work. It's hard work. Training a devotee in Krishna consciousness is the very hard work. I know, because people have spent a lot of energy and labor on training me, trying to train me. So it takes a lot of efforts to train a devotee in Krishna consciousness properly. So we should appreciate another devotee who is trying to do that, who's spending his resources, his energy, his time. He could just go outside and make billions of dollars. Instead, he has given up on that idea and focusing on making another person a better human being, giving them the highest benediction, the highest result, Krishna Prema. So we should appreciate that, and that's what we try to do. With our little sincere efforts, we can tell this whole world, make this whole world a better place, just by making them a Vaishnava. Because a Vaishnava has all the good qualities, right? The whole Shastra explains that. A Vaishnava, anyone remembers any verse related to that? That a Vaishnava has all the good qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You remember that verse? Yeah. So it's said in the Shastra, it's Shastric, that a pure devotee has all the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, and we know Supreme Personality of Godhead is the greatest person. So the acts performed by a devotee who has got all the positive qualities of Krishna will perform those great acts by making many devotees in an instance, like we see Prabhupada, very sincerely, an 70-year-old man in the West, who has never even seen snow, imagine in that cold, severe cold, left Vrindavan. I mean, imagine, people leave their current place and go to Vrindavan to live in the holy place. Just because of the instruction of his spiritual master, he left Vrindavan and went to the West. I mean, this is also inconceivable for non-devotees. They say he probably went, just to see the West, how glorious. No, he went to give, he didn't went to take. When people would ask question, why have you come to the West? Why have you come to America, Prabhupada? And Prabhupada would say, I have not come here to take. Like almost every other Indian, when we go to the West, we come to get a job or get a, permanent residence or something like that. But Prabhupada didn't care for that. Prabhupada went to give. The only thing in his heart was to give Krishna Prema, love for Krishna. He didn't know how it's going to happen. when he landed in USA, he was like, I don't know what's gonna, these meat eaters, they're performing so much illicit stuff. I don't know how to help them. Krishna, you make me dance as you please. That's all he said. Krishna, you make me dance as you please. And Krishna made him dance, make the whole world dance actually. You would see those big Rath Yatra festivals with thousands of devotees with the shika, and with these saffron cloth, white cloth, shaved head, and you see Krishna made the whole world dance. So I'll stop there. It's almost time. If there's any questions, comments, corrections.
One clarification. You were saying even though you gave like 64 explanations.
I'm not certain on how many he gave, but he gave quite a lot of explanations on.
So someone may say that it's sort of violent and for fearless mental preparation to follow that path of getting up and also do great preparation.
It's an interesting point to make that people can think like that, but Lord Chaitanya wasn't giving any speculative information. He was giving everything in relation to devotional service, which is the essence of the Lord. There's nowhere on those explanations that I don't recall that Lord Chaitanya mentioned anything that was not in relating to the devotional service. So, but it's coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I mean, Krishna himself has allowed, through Kapila and these other philosophies to please as people want to be pleased. So, if you are a sincere devotional, like for example, that pastime where Lord Chaitanya tells, I can't remember who it was, to worship Lord Ramachandra, Murari Gupta. Tells Murari Gupta to stop worshiping Lord Ramachandra and worship Krishna. But a sincere devotee would not do that because he's attracted to that form of Krishna. So similarly, a devotee, even though Lord Chaitanya himself comes and tells you should become a Mayavadi, even though he would not, Supreme Personality would not. Just imagine, a Supreme Personality of Godhead comes and tells you should become a Mayavadi, but a sincere devotee would not take it. It's like, that's not possible, I would not become a Mayavadi. I would sincerely serve your lotus feet. And many devotees did. After they became, like for example, their hearts melted when Lord Chaitanya was speaking in that assembly of Vaishnavas. So many impersonalists, one disciple of Prakashananda Saraswati started glorifying Lord Chaitanya. Out of nowhere, he's a full-blown impersonalist, right? Full-blown Mayavadi, but still, because of that personal features, personal qualities of the Lord, he started just glorifying the Supreme Personality of God. Like Bhava Prabhu was giving the story that Navina Narada Prabhu shared, that how when Radhanath Maharaj once in Haridwar or Rishikesh was giving a lecture, and there was so many Mayavadis present, and Radhanath Maharaj was giving a lecture, and all their heart was melting, and they were just had tears in their eyes. So this years of lifetime of these, so you can go on to speculative knowledge, but a sincere devotee wouldn't take it. He wouldn't get lost. Like for example, we came to Krishna consciousness because we saw the attraction and the love of Krishna. Not everyone will see it. Not everyone, like many people come and many people go. But only few stay who are sincere in their devotional service. I know I'm not really answering the question you're saying, but I don't exactly know how to answer that question as well. Maybe someone else can add some point to that question. You want to add something, Bhava?
Like I was saying, all of Mahaprabhu's explanation came in line with that. He wasn't doing this speculation of the
because he was giving, when he was explaining those words, he's referring to the Shastra as well. There's many quotes that are quoting the Shastra and proving the point of Atmarama, how it can be seen with adding extra cha, or removing the cha at the end. So there's many different ways, but everything is in line in bhakti. He's not speculating that, he's not saying that Atmarama means Krishna doesn't exist. He's just saying he's fully satisfied and fully complete. I don't know if you have any explanation to it or better understanding. Thank you. Anything else? Anyone like that? We'll just stop here. Granthraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.